Alright, Shalom, Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Alright, Hebrews. Can this Israelite issue be settled? You know, the Israelite issue gonna have to be settled one day. And the longer that it take them to settle this issue, it's the worse that it's gonna be for them. For the simple fact is that when the whole world wake up, man, to what happened, and people do want truth, and especially them old Asian nations, man, they love truth, man. They like to have some truth or what they think is truth, you know, and as well as the Russians and the other folks, and as well as some of the folks in Europe, man, they would probably like to have some truth too, and know what really went on in biblical history. And then I can show that how some history been kept out of world history purposely, and then how that these religions that's been created from this blank history that come about during the Babylonian wars, not explaining what happened to the Israelites that ran into Africa, and how it's been blank history on that, and how that the religions then sprung up as a consequence, you know what I'm saying, to that, and how that millions and millions of peoples lost their lives, you know what I'm saying, over these religions. I'm talking about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and how that those religions come about after the covenant was broken, and then how that the people that participate in those religions have no clue of what really went on in the biblical days, and how that they then accepted some people as being Israelites that are not really Israelites, and then how that the people in the world then kind of like, you know, I know they got to be suspicious after reading the Tanakh history. That's one of the reasons why they'll come up with a New Testament, is because if you read and focus on the Tanakh history, then you're going to see that the Israelites got some punishment coming. Got some serious punishment coming. And then how that they couldn't hide. You know, and then how that the Creator acknowledged that they would be punished. But yet these peoples who claim an Israelite heritage don't have the punishment of the Tanakh, you know, on them as being covenant breakers. And I, you know, bet that the rest of the world is wondering, you know, in the back of their mind, that, hey, it ain't adding up. But they just been going on with it because it ain't been no other, you know, information, you know what I'm saying, about this. But now that is information here, and how that we can show that the people that are claiming an Israelite heritage are not the Israelites that broke the covenant and that ran into Africa, that reaped the punishment, and that how we people from the transatlantic slave trade are indeed the Israelites that broke the covenant during the Babylonian wars that has been quiet, blank history about. You know, I got a video about the quiet history and how it's been real quiet, you know what I'm saying, about the Israelites going into Africa to do the Babylonian wars, is because we abandoned our heritage to the Sephardi's, and that how Ashkenazi, you know, played a part with chasing us out the promised land. And that would be, you know, when they was called Scythians, and how I got this information, and how it ain't gonna be no getting around this, and then how this soon as the world find out that it's gonna be a forced settlement, you know what I'm saying, it's gonna be a forced settlement. But how that they can settle this issue, the Israelite issue, with the Israelite Brotherhood, and that the Israelite Brotherhood set up in the mountainous part of the promised land, and then be responsible for letting, you know, the Israelites come back to the promised land, because, you know, we got to weed out the demigod worshippers and those who don't believe in Almighty Yah, as well as the peoples that's claiming the Israelite heritage that are not Israelites. Now, right now, the situation may seem favorable to the Ashkenazi and Sephardi groups, because they got the land and they got the peoples believing, after 2,600 some years that how that they are the original Israelites, but how that technology now, Almighty Yah got to be part of technology, and it will make sense to how Almighty Yah is a part of technology, being that it would take technology, man, to come to this earth and then create what's in it. That's technology right there, and we know that Almighty Yah, and that how the Tanakh always speak of the heavenly host. So we know that Almighty Yah and them got to come from somewhere, and then that's technology right there. So Almighty Yah gonna be responsible for the technology, and then how about that technology brings the past to present? Yes, technology brings the past to present. And what has happened now is that the past is here in the present, and how that we can show that the Ashkenazi and the Sephardis, how they got the Israelite heritage. Now, I ain't pointing no accusation or no accusing them, or I'm just telling you just some just straight facts that can't be denied. How the Sephardis and the Ashkenazis got the Israelite heritage, and how it's just been quiet about this, and ain't nobody never spoke about this to them. The Israelite brotherhood, all praise be Almighty Yah. When you just worship Almighty Yah alone, what I'm saying, He gonna reveal some truth to you. How about that the people we abandoned our heritage to never recorded, what happened during the Babylonian wars about the Israelites that went into Africa to do the Egyptian religion. And we know that Egypt is the Sahara. Egypt is the Sahara, so we went into Africa to do the Sahara religions. And how that wasn't recorded, and that how this been real quiet about that, and how they ain't wrote no books or nothing about that, and how it's been just pure blank. But now how technology woke the sleeping, is waking the sleeping giants up. But listen, we can prove absolutely without a shadow of a doubt how the Sephardi and the Ashkenazi got the Israelite heritage, and this is something real serious, because you got religions, man, you got 2-3 religions based upon these peoples, the Sephardis and the Ashkenazi, as being Israelites, and how that the people in the world that then converted or been raised into those religions, believe in them religions and believe in their origins. But what they never realize is that those religions were created by non-Israelites. But how did they think that they have are genuine religions of Israelites, and that they are connected to the Most High because of that religion that they got, and that how did their religion come from the people that's claiming a Jewish heritage, and then how we know that that's wrong. You see what I'm saying? That's wrong, and that the people that's claiming a Jewish heritage are not the Israelites, and that how did the Israelites didn't even want to do the covenant, and that how we went into Africa to do their religions, and that how millions of peoples all around the world, millions of peoples being killed in the name of these religions. But now truth is here. It's like judgment is here on the religions. By the grace of Almighty Yah, judgment is here on the religions, because we can show that the people that created the religions were not Israelites. So therefore that makes the religions invalid. That's like, I got a video explaining that Muhammad didn't even know who was an Israelite during his time, and that the people who professed to be Israelites were the people that was forced to the conversion under John Harnicus in 130 BC, and how Herd built the Edomite temple, and how the Edomite Zealots and Sicaries protected her Edomite temple. Man, I go into that history. I just did a video about that, and how Muhammad didn't even know who the real Israelites were, and that the real original Israelites were in Africa, waiting on the transatlantic slave trade from breaking covenant during the Babylonian wars, like almost, man, 2,000 years, man, before, 1,500 years, man, before he was even born and stuff. So, man, these religions is finna crumble, and that how everybody gonna have to turn and worship Almighty Yah, because they gonna see that the religions are false, because the people who created the religions and based upon that they supposed to be Israelites, it's finna crumble now, because we can show how that the Israelites broke the covenant, and how the Sephardies ain't nothing but some Amorites from Babylon, and then how the Ashkenazi was Scythians, and then how that they chased us in the promised land. And matter of fact, I just finished reading over a little piece of paper, where a piece of information that I had on the arrowheads that exclusively come from Ashkenazi, and how that they are responsible for these arrows single-handedly, and that how no other nations could produce them during the time of the Babylonian wars but these peoples, the Scythians, and how that they shot the whole promised land up, and how that they still finding arrowheads, and that how that the Israelites, if you in them camps, and you're not gonna know no truth, because they using Jewish history, and then how you got to come to the Israelite Brotherhood, and I'm saying, to get the real correct history on what happened to us. All right, the Ashkenazi, the Scythians, Ashkenazi and the Scythians are the same people, and then how did they, left a trail of violence behind them, as they was promised to be, prophesied to be some violent people, and it would take some violent people. That's like us in this captivity. I mean, it would take some extraordinary peoples that have a extraordinary talent with some violence, man, to keep us in the captivity and keep us locked down and stuff, man, where we can't do nothing. And then we know that on top of that violence, that it's a group of peoples that mastermind the whole thing, and that's been responsible for thousands of years of governing peoples and civilizations, and that'll be none other than the Sephardies, and how that they the masters of the whole Western culture, as well as Ashkenazi too. But look here, we can show how Ashkenazi got into our heritage, and then us showing this, mean this put the religions at stake, and then how it's gonna be forced. Man, it's gonna be a forced settlement one of these days when the world wake up, and then how it's not gonna be favorable to them, but how that they can help us get into the promised land, and then the whole Israelite issue can be settled. We can shut the door on it, and then just leave it up to the Israelite Brotherhood to deal with the Israelites in the captivity. That'd be the best thing for the Ashkenazi and the Sephardies, and how we won't even bother them in the promised land, and how they can keep whatever land that they got going on, and just give us the mountainous region, and then just leave us alone. And then how that the Israelite Brotherhood, it can bring a settlement to this Israelite issue. But if they should ever to go happen to try to elevate the camps, or somebody in the camps that don't know no truth, how it's not gonna work, and it ain't gonna be no settlement, and it's gonna be disaster, and it ain't gonna work. And how that the Jewish community will be on the losing end if they don't embrace truth now, because we're at the threshold. We're gonna be at the threshold, man, to where you either go on this side other side. You either gonna rise with the horizon, with the sun come shining, or you finna go down in the abyss, into the pit. And that's for holding on to an Israelite heritage that the world finna see that don't belong to you. But if you come on and work something out with the Israelite Brotherhood, and who represent the whole Israelite community, whether they like it or not, you know, and then how did we can bring this Israelite issue to men of settlement, and then, you know, everybody can be happy. Because we got proof showing how Ashkenazi got into our heritage, and Ashkenazi ain't nothing but the Scythians. Look, in 1975, minutes the Babylonian siege arrowheads. I'm constantly stressing how arrowheads were left by Ashkenazi during the Babylonian wars, and it make you think that this Professor Nachman Avagad had to be of Sephardi origin, because the Sephardis and Ashkenazi kind of like been having a little proxy wars over the Israelite heritage. And it take a trained eye, a person to know real Israelite history to understand this, how they've been having proxy wars. And that's how the religions was created. You know, everybody know that Ashkenazi do good under Christianity. And then if you look at some of the Ashkenazi peoples and important prominent peoples in the Jewish community, how they embrace Christianity, and then how Islam still right now today hold a large community of the Sephardi Jews, the ones who fled basically doing Hitler's robbery, you know what I'm saying, of the Sephardi groups. You know what I'm saying? And how that they all went and settled in pigmen and folks' land and so forth. But how that we can trace what Ashkenazi did, and I always show how the Sephardis got into our heritage, but Ashkenazi, you know, it need to be understood that this is also fulfilling prophecy that Prophet Noah said that Japheth would be in Shem's house, and Canaan would be, you know, his servant, which ain't nothing but the Sephardis, and then got beat up by the Ashkenazi, and how the Sephardis control the whole Israelite heritage and took it from the Sephardis. But how did they both play hand in hand in this? Look, in 1975, on the last day of his digging, Professor Nechem Avgad found a 22-foot thick wall. He reasoned that this tower had been involved in the defense of the Babylonian siege. This tower had been built by the Israelites over 2,600 years men ago, and was constructed to protect Jerusalem's northern border. Near the base of the tower was a piece of charred wood that covered 4 arrowheads, 3 of which are bronze and 1 of which is iron. The iron arrowheads were of Israelite origin, but the bronze arrowheads were from the Babylonian army. These arrowheads gave proof that some battle took place at this tower between the Israelites and the Babylonians, and this gave some credibility to the idea that there were a large-scale clash between two groups. This siege was thought to be due to the rebellion of King Zedekiah, who they, you know, we men pronounce the names the way we do. Zedekiah, you know what I'm saying, who they pronounce his name. But these arrowheads allowed, you know what I'm saying, that professor to accurately date the battle. The type of bronze arrowheads allow him to narrow down the date of the attacks because they were of Scythian origin. That's Ashkenazi, which were arrowheads of Babylonian archers. That's going to be these folks right here, them archers, busting them arrows at us. Made us get down during the Babylonian wars. We had to take off because we couldn't stay on the promised land after Almighty Yah done sent for them folks to drive us out. And they drove us out, just like Almighty Yah told them to. You know, I got some more arrowheads. I'm going to And then let's see about these other arrowheads. But man, they shot the whole promised land up. And man, they left all kind of evidence showing this and how that this history been hid from the world, and that how ain't nobody been wanting to talk about this, man. They doing all these archaeological finds and digs and stuff, all these digs and findings, and then how that, you know, one group is telling on the other, and then how that all these arrowheads, you know what I'm saying, was found everywhere, and then how that they shot the promised land up, did them archers, them Scythian archers, Ashkenazi archers, you know, and then how that we had to get off the land because we was doing Egyptian religion. We couldn't do the Egyptian religion on the promised land. Even though these peoples are not Israelites, they'll try to do some type of form of our heritage, what they call Judaism, and try to hang on to it. And then how we didn't want to do nothing with the heritage and only wanted to do Egyptian religion. And that was one of the reasons why we ran off during the Babylonian wars, was to go into Africa and do the Egyptian religion, and how that it was prophesied. But you see them, these are the archers. Those are the archers, the Scythian archers. And then they would chase us into Africa during the Babylonian wars. You know, they would chase us into Africa during the Babylonian wars. And we had to get up off the promised land. And then when they doing their archaeological research, you know, like I say, that that guy had to be of a Sephardic origin, that professor, because he snitching on Ashkenazi. He's snitching on Ashkenazi, but then, like I say, Almighty Yah got to do with technology and how he gonna bring the past to the present, and then how that our heritage couldn't be hid for long anyway, even though it's been covered up in this. And it's a miracle that the Israelite Brotherhood, by the grace of Almighty Yah, man, put this history together, because you ain't finna find this history completed in this form nowhere on the face of this earth. You ain't finna find no book talking about that the Israelites ran into Africa and never returned during the Babylonian wars, and how that they never reunited with the Israelites that come back, the little percentage that come back from the Mesopotamian captivity. I got videos talking about that, and I ain't been no talking, zero talking, man, about that. You know, but yet it's clear in Tanakh history, and then it's clear with the evidence, you know, what happened. That's like, I'm going to finish reading this here, but look, this is where they found arrowheads at. The Scythian, exclusively Ashkenazi, and Ashkenazi and the Scythians are the same people. You know, they won't even argue this, but because they know that who they are. Alright, Scythian arrowheads shoot Jerusalem up. Scythian trilobite arrowheads were found at Tel Megidim, at Atalit, Midigo, Kisin, Quashmana, Samaria, Tel Michael, Gezer, Tel Nabish, Jerusalem in the city of David, Kativ, Hanam, and on the southwestern hill at Ashkelon, Ikron, Ashdod, Tel Batish, Tel El Hassi, Lachish, Beth Shemish, Galim, Galdid. I mean, it goes on and on and on, you know, because like I say, the Creator sent for them folks to get us up off the land. And then we was told by prophet Habakkuk in 625, just before the Babylonian wars really set in. You know, the Egyptians then killed King Josiah. They put us back on Egyptian religion. And then, you know, the Babylonians are come. And then this will be it for the 99%. All the tribes, as I showed that all the tribes ran into Africa during the Babylonian wars, and how it wasn't no 10 lost tribes, and then how those are myths, and then how a lot of people heritage has been created off the 10 lost tribe myths, and how I showed that those are lies, and now that those people's heritage are at stake. That's like I say, a lot of people, millions of peoples all over this earth then died over the religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and how that those religions were supposedly be in connection to the Israelites, and how that I'm showing that the Israelites broke the covenant for Egyptian religion, and that how was it no Israelites men around during Muhammad time for him meant to say that these are the genuine Israelites, and how he could create a religion off whatever that they was doing, supposed to be the people of the book, and so forth. And then how that, we know that Christianity, man, gonna basically come from Ashkenazi, and I explained in the Discopolis cities how all the bishops and all them hung out there, man, way before the Council of Nicaea got started. That was in Turkey and so forth, under the Byzantine, and how that Christianity was already rocking and rolling from Ashkenazi in the Discopolis, and then how that the whole history about Jesus, man, is whack, and how that Jesus spoke Aramaic, but his whole history was written in Greek. It wasn't translated from Aramaic to Greek, but it was written entirely in Greek. And how Jesus lived during the Roman times, where everybody spoke Latin, the Romanist Latin language, and so forth, and how Greek was even rare then. So man, it's a whole lot going on, and then how all these peoples done died, all these wars done died over false religions, and that how that all the peoples that's responsible for these religions, man, their history can be shown, and that they can be shown to be false, and that how it is reckoning now. You know what I'm saying? I'm the light. You know what I'm saying? I'm the light to the Gentile. They talking about a light, and the light for humanity. The light is here now. And then you get some real light, because we get to see what happened and how these religions come about that's false, and how that the real Israelites broke covenant and went into Africa during the Babylonian wars, and how some people settled in the land that's claiming the Israelite heritage that the religion sprung up from. And we know that during the Roman time, when Christianity sprung up, the Ashkenazi and the Sephardists was in the land, and that the Israelites had been gone for almost 600 years. But let's finish reading this right here. All right, then we'll start back over. Look, in 1975, on the last day of his digging, Professor Nietzsche Avigad found a 20-foot tower with 12-foot brick walls, and reasoned that this tower had been involved with the defense of the Babylonian siege. This tower had been built by the Israelites over 2,600 years ago, and was constructed to protect Jerusalem's northern border. Near the base of the tower was a piece of charred wood that covered 4 arrowheads, 3 of which were bronze and 1 which is iron. The iron arrowheads were Israelites' origin, but the bronze arrowheads come from the Babylonian army. These arrowheads gave proof that some battle took place at this tower between the Israelite and the Babylonians, and this gave credibility to the idea that there was a large-scale clash between two groups. The siege was thought to be due to the rebellion of Zedekiah, who they call Zedekiah. All right, these arrowheads allowed him to accurately date the battle. Come out that professor. Like I say, he had to be of Sephardi origin, because he pointed the finger at them. Man, before he died and passed away, man, he told on them. All right, the type of bronze arrowheads also allow him to narrow down the date of the attacks, because they were of Scythian origin, which were arrowheads of Babylonian archers. Man, I show you them Babylonian archers. You know what I'm saying? I show you the archers. Them folks. Them, the Scythians, who Almighty Yah sent chasers out the land. Ashkenazi. Alright. These arrowheads allow him to accurately date the battle. The type of bronze arrowheads allow him to narrow down the dates of the attacks, because they were of Scythian type. Scythian type, which were arrowheads of Babylonian archers. These allowed him to narrow it down to a couple of years of the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem in 586 BC. I say 588. All right, these arrowheads are thought to be the first remains are covered on the Babylonian siege. All right, the arrowheads help determine the date of the Babylonian siege. Scythian. Look, the arrowheads helped determine the date of the Babylonian siege were Scythian, which meant that they had three triangular fins. See them right there? You know what I'm saying? That's what Ashkenazi shot at us to make us get off the promised land. All right, which meant that they had three triangular fins, and in hollow socket, the Scythian type come from the Scythians, which were Ashkenazi. Look, which from the Scythians, known, you know what I'm saying, for their savagery, they come from the Scythians, which were Ashkenazi, which were a nomadic tribe of Europeans. The Scythians were known for their savagery and their double carved bows. These arrowheads allow Professor Ancient Avigard to accurate and efficiently date the Babylonian siege. So, you know, he told on Ashkenazi, and he let you know the Ashkenazi coming to the Israelite heritage during the Babylonian wars. And then there's so much proof about this. If you know what you're reading and who you studying and what you're studying, then, you know what I'm saying, you're going to know that Ashkenazi settled in Scythopolis, what they call Beth Shan. You know what I'm saying? Beth Shan. And then he settled there. And then he would live there. And then, you know, many had synagogues. And they would, you know, be in conflict with the Sephardists who had the Edomite temple. But how that they had been settled, man, during the Greek times, man, the Seleucids helped them. And the Ptolemies kind of like helped the Sephardists. And then how that they would have proxy wars and so forth. And then, man, it's a whole bunch of history, but we understand that Ashkenazi come in during the Babylonian wars. And that how all that history during the Greek time and after it is their history, the Jewish history. Look, you see Scythopolis right there. That's where they settled at. That's a done deal. That's a done deal. Ain't no change in that. Ain't no change in that. And we know that the Scythians, it's Ashkenazi. So then that's why come we gonna need, you know what I'm saying? We gonna need a settlement one day. And we gonna have to settle this with truth. Because we know who Ashkenazi is and how he coming to our heritage. You know, can the Israelite issue be settled? Yes. Will it be settled? Yes, Almighty Yah gonna settle it. And then if they wait on Almighty Yah to settle it, then that's gonna be the whole world gonna be known woke up to we Israelites and what happened during the Babylonian wars and how that they ain't gonna have no power. They ain't gonna have no power, but if they place us in the promised land through the Israelite brotherhood, if they place us in the promised land and let the Israelite brotherhood oversee it, that how this would be solving the Israelite issue. And then if they settles in the mountainous region, and then let the Israelite brotherhood be responsible for the other Israelites, you know what I'm saying, coming back. Because everybody can't come back to the promised land. That's like the African Jews that didn't go through the transatlantic slave trade. You know, we're not going to allow them to claim an Israelite heritage. And how did their heritage come off trade routes? By these folks right here, the Babylonian scribes, the Sephardists, going into Africa. Here goes some in North Africa. They will have pigmentation, and that's how Israelites be confused, you know what I'm saying? And be thinking that the Israelites went up to Spain and hang out and then went over to the Americas and was called Morenos and all that stuff. Nah, partner, that was these Sephardists right here, and that how the Sephardim branch gonna have pigmentation because they come from the Arabian countries, where were the Ishmaelites and the Edomites, and from Yemen, and how pigmentation would be upon them Arab tribes, and how the Sephardims would go into Africa, into Spain, and so forth, and how the Israelites be confused about that and be saying, Ram Bam, this in Spain. Ram Bam said this. Ram Bam said that. Man, them Israelites don't know nothing what's going on. Man, they lost. They lost, and then they be believing in Yawashis and Jesus and all kind of stuff. But these are the Israelites be confused about these folks right here that would be in Spain, and they called Sephardims, and how they had pigmentation, and how that they responsible for trade routes all around the world. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna explain how they got in our heritage, but how did they do that? Professor probably was one of them when he was snitching on Ashkenazi arrowheads and turning them into Ashkenazi. So that's a done deal on Ashkenazi. You know what I'm saying? That he cannot refute that, and there's no recovering from that, and that the best thing to do is to set us up in the promised land and leave us alone, and then they can have Judaism in the rest, you know what I'm saying, of the promised land. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, appropriating, you know what I'm saying, the culture. That's what happened during Hezekiah times, after the Syrians captivity, how a group of people, these peoples appropriated our culture, and it's like Ashkenazi and the European folks, they get it from Ashkenazi. Ashkenazi is the founder of appropriating our culture that spread it to the rest of the European peoples and become okay and acceptable. You know what I'm saying? That's like this mess right here. Man, this junk real crazy. You know what I'm saying? And this let you know that them folks will claim our culture as happened during the Babylonian wars, and how that they will do it, and how that, we cool with it. We ain't never been mad at the folks for claiming our heritage, like we wasn't mad at the Sephardi's or probably the Ashkenazi for chasing us off the land, but how we wasn't upset with the Sephardi's being in the land, claiming the Israelite heritage, or else we would have had destroyed them when they tricked us under the Gabonite, under their Gabonite heritage, when they came to us with dirty clothes and old shoes and stuff on, and tricked Prophet Joshua. And then that would be how the Amorites got into our heritage a long time ago when we left Egypt. They immediately got into our heritage, and how the Sephardi's, the cream of the crop, did the coup d'etat on our heads during the Babylonian wars, when Ashkenazi chased us into Africa. Almighty Yah told Ashkenazi to chase us into Africa, but he didn't just tell the Sephardi's to get our heritage. We more or less got a legitimacy with Ashkenazi because the Creator told him to come get our heritage, but he didn't tell the Sephardi's to keep claiming our heritage after we ran out. And it's like I say, they will appropriate our culture like this person. You know what I'm saying? Listen.
You've provided us a birth certificate of Rachel's. You've given us family photos of Rachel.
Claiming
Is your daughter
Israelite
then
and want
pretending
to
to be black?
We can't answer that question for her. She has not explained to us why
everybody
she's doing
can claim
what
our
she's
heritage
doing
and pretend to be
being
us.
dishonest and deceptive
We don't
with
care.
her identity.
We just want to get along with everybody.
This is your daughter, though. Why do you think she's pretending?
Well, basically, bottom line, we're just saying that we're confirming the
that
truth.
Caucasian lady that tricked all the Israelites into thinking that she was one of them.
Why she feels it's
necessary tricking the Israelites into thinking that she was one of them, and the Israelites believed it and accepted her and was rolling with it, and come to find out she wasn't even one of us. And that how mom and daddy, you know what I'm saying? Men of the, hey, you know what I'm saying, of European origin, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, they will appropriate our culture, and that's what happened during the Babylonian wars when we ran out. Both groups did this, and how did, you know, one of the groups been had a habit, men are hanging around us, getting our culture. You know, that's why I say, man, this don't have to be a settlement, because truth is here now. Truth is here now, and we have clear truth. You know, we can show what happened in the past, and I can show that these people's got a habit, man, of doing what we do. You know what I'm saying? It's like him. Look, check him out. Till it tracks a banana peel, attack of a silverback gorilla. You're having a little trouble fathoming this is actually happening. Him. You know what I'm saying? And check this devil out right here. Check this devil out. Check her out. You know what I'm saying? They'll get our culture, you know, even though that rap, you know, they done took it over, and how they profit on it more than we have. That's like the world been profiting off the Israelite heritage more than the real Israelites have. We sitting here suffering in captivity, been getting beat up for 400 years, and how the whole world been having a good time off our heritage. Drop this and let the whole world feel it. Let them feel it. And I'm still in the murder business. I can hold you down like I'm giving lessons in physics. Right. You know what I'm saying? Them folks, man, would take our heritage, and they did it during the Babylonian wars, and then they caught up. Because we can show how Ashkenazi got our heritage, and we can show how the Sephardi's got our heritage, and like I say, the folks will, you know, pretend men to be Israelites, as we see that they got a history of doing this, you know. All right, then let's look at this here. What Prophet Haggai said. This is like a few years, man, before Ashkenazi pull up on us, and you know, I think the Egyptians then killed King Josiah, and we in the land sinning and doing all kind of wickedness. Look, the burden which Haggai the prophet did see. This is in 625 BC. The burden which Haggai the prophet did see. O Elohim, how long shall I cry, and thou wilt not hear, even cry out unto thee of violence, and thou wilt not save? Because he telling what kind of folks coming to get. Ain't gonna be no getting saved from these folks when they get you. All right. Why doest thou show me iniquity, and cause me to behold grievance? For spoiling and violence are before me, and there are that rise up strife and contention. That's what kind of peoples we deal with. Rise up strife and contention, always spoiling us. Therefore the law is slack, and judgment doeth never go forth. For the wicked doeth compass about the righteous. Therefore wrong judgment proceedeth. Behold ye among the heathen, and regard and wonder marvelously, for I will work a work in your days, which ye shall not believe, though it be told you. For lo, I will rise up the Chaldeans. Now that's Ashkenazi, that bitter and hasty nation, which shall march through the breadth of the land to possess the dwelling places that are not theirs. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment and their dignity shall precede themselves. And we are a witness to the judgment, and how that they do what they call justice is injustice and oppression. Is what we've been going through. And it's just like the scriptures say. Their horses are also swifter than the leopards, and are more furious than the evening wolves, and their horsemen shall spread themselves, and their horsemen shall come from far, and they shall fly as the eagle that hastens to eat. Man, that's what happened to us. That's what happened to us. And it was none other than these peoples right here. Came just like the Tanakh said. I mean, they come just like the Tanakh said. And then they came on horsebacks. And then when they came on horsebacks, it was over. It was over with for us. It was over with. And they came on them horses. Just like the prophet said, they came on them horses. And when them folks come on them horses, it was over with for us. Zero chance of recovery. Zero chance of recovering. And I explained that's Ashkenazi, and then how that they would, you know, them arrowheads and them bows and all that stuff, you know, that they find in the promised land today can be dated exclusively to them. They shall come all for violence, their face shall swoop up as the east wind, and they shall gather their captivity as the sand. Got us over here, men in captivity. All right. Then shall his mind change, and he shall pass over and offend, or putting this his power unto his God. Art thou not from everlasting, O Elohim, my Yah, mine holy one? We shall not die, O Elohim. Thou hast ordained them for judgment. In Almighty Yah, thou hast established them for correction. And that's what we've been going through right now today. You know what I'm saying? The correction and the judgment that Almighty Yah set forth because we broke covenant, and he had already outlined what we would go through and the peoples that we'll be dealing with. And that's what happened to us. Art thou not from everlasting, O Elohim, my Yah, my holy one? We shall not die, O Elohim. Thou hast ordained them for judgment. Almighty Yah, thou hast established them for correction. Thou art pure eyes, then do behold evil, and canst not look on iniquity. Wherefore lookest thou upon them that deal treacherously, and holdest thy tongue when the wicked devoureth the man that is more righteous than he, and maketh men as the fishes of the sea, as the creeping things that have no rule over them. They take up all them with the angle that catch them in their net, and gather them in their drag. Therefore they rejoice and are glad. You know what I'm saying? That's like they laws that they create, and how we get punished by their laws, and how they laws is like been a net, been dragging us up in it, and then how they just kick back and laugh. But we can prove, you know, without a shadow of a doubt, that how Ashkenazi got into our heritage. So we know that, you know, this Israelite issue, you know what I'm saying, gonna have to be settled. And then look, we can see them doing the Babylonian wars. When you're reading the book of Jeremiah and you're reading about the Chaldeans, you're reading about Ashkenazi. You know what I'm saying? They made up the Chaldean army, and how that they would destroy Scythia. You know what I'm saying? The Scythians. I mean, how the Scythians would destroy Assyria. You know, I always do the little history, man, on this, on how Baratuda, you know, Ashkenazi, that's King Midas' daddy, how they helped destroy Assyria, Media, and Elam. You know, how they went robbing them, and then how Prophet Jonah had just left in 760 BC. You know, about 50 years after that, Ashkenazi settled real good in Assyria, and how Prophet Jonah told the Assyrian king, I think that's Usher-Dan III, to get them folks about his land, and how that they say that they was gonna change, put on sackcloth, but then after that they went and started robbing and stuff. And then Prophet Num told Assyria men about its destruction, and then how we Israelites had a covenant with the Assyrians just before Prophet Nahum told them about their destruction in 697 BC. How like about a good 60 years, you know what I'm saying, 56 years, man, before then, you know what I'm saying, we was kicking it with the Assyrians, taking trade off into Africa, oil off into Africa. Let me show this. All right, you go to Hosea. I almost turned right to it. Hosea 12. That's why couldn't have never been no 10 lost tribes. And that's like I say, that all them folks that's claiming the Israelite heritage off that 10 lost tribe stuff, man, y'all, day of reckoning is almost here. Because we can prove that you got it from either Ashkenazi or the Sephardi's. And man, we already showing you their connection to the Israelites. All right, look. Ephraim feedeth on wind, and followeth after the east wind. He daily increases lies and desolation, and they do make a covenant with the Assyrians, and oil is carried into Egypt. See, oil is carried into Egypt. So it would have been hard for it to be a 10-law tribe when the tribe of Ephraim is kind of responsible for the whole northern kingdom. And then how did they would take all into Egypt. And then that's why come after the Assyrian so-called captivity, the Israelites are still in the land. You know, and I can show this, and then when I'm showing that, let's show how the Sephardists got into our heritage. We see Ashkenazi come with the Chaldeans, and how did they settle in Scythopolis. How did they settle in Scythopolis? Ain't no question about that. How they settled in Scythopolis. That ain't gonna change. That can't change. That's locked in. That's locked in history now. They even got it in their history. How they settled in Scythopolis and how they got control of the Galilee part of the promised land right now today. Right now today, they got control of that part. You know? And look, you see Scythopolis. That's where they was. That's where they settled. Ancient Beth Shane. Ancient Beth Shane. Right down the street from where they say Jesus was in Nazareth or some stuff like that. You know, they have his story all mixed up. Alright, so we see what Ashkenaz is selling it. Now, let's go look at the Sephardists during the Assyrian times when he come into our heritage. He come into our heritage in 722 BC under the Assyrians. Now the more Amorites will take control of Assyria at different times. You know, ain't no telling how that went down, you know, when the Assyrians brung them to our land, but how that they was Amorites already, because the Amorites are the founders of Babylon. So it was a whole bunch of Amorites being placed in the promised land that come from the Amorites. So, you know, if they claiming the Israelite heritage from the time that we exodus Egypt during Joshua time and was in our temples and congregations, and then, you know, it wouldn't be nothing for them to claim our heritage after we run into Africa, after they done kicked it at the Passover dinner under King Hezekiah, and then 134 years later we run off. That they was doing our heritage 134 years before we ran it off. So, you know, when the world wake up to that, and how that the Sephardi, the Sephardic, and the Sephardim are originally from Sephardim, and this is where the tax come from. This is where the tax come from, and the tax come from these people. The tax that we got now today, even though Ashkenazi may be over it and administer its structure, but how did the original tax come from right here? Sipper, Babylon right there, these Amorites. Murray, these are Amorites right here. The dark part is going to be the heart of them. You know what I'm saying? Where it's the most concentrated Amorites at. And then how this Sipper is where the tax come from. Sipper is where the tax come from that we have today. The tax system in this form today, and how they tax every single thing that moves. Every single thing got a tax associated with it, gonna come from them. And then that's how that they control Babylon. And then it's like Almighty Yah said a Jubilee, how we supposed to give back. You know what I'm saying? That's like in this tax system, if you fall in debt, you know, because they had banking system, they temples was they bank, and they'll lend out grain and stuff that if you couldn't pay it back, man, how you could lose everything. You know, and then how did the tax system and the property holding and contracts, all that come from them. All that come from them. Where them people would get settled in the promised land after we ran out. during the Babylonian wars when Ashkenazi chased us into Africa, and how that they were settled, how that they was already settled, and how it wasn't be nothing for them to keep a Israelite heritage that they was doing under King Hezekiah when he led them into the Passover dinner. And then way before that, how they was the Amorites, the Gibeonites that tricked us with dirty clothes and so forth, told us that they was from afar off. That's like now they be tricking us and making us think that they ain't doing as good as they doing, and we know that they actually run the whole show off the Israelite heritage, which, if we was claiming the Israelite heritage and in the promised land, that how the whole world would be favorable to us. But how did we ran off during the Babylonian wars, and it wasn't recorded, and the people think that the people are Israelites that was doing our heritage since the Babylonian wars, that, that's why they been benefiting. All right. 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 24. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and from Gud, and from Abel, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. So then they gonna be in the promised land, and they ain't going nowhere. And then when we run off during the Babylonian wars, like 134 years after they was placed, then they would have our heritage. And then when Ashkenazi come into the picture, who come from Babylon, a place that they control, then they would quietly, and be real quietly mean about what happened with us. And then we was gone. It was like good riddance. And then them two split our heritage. And then how that they been fighting for supremacy. And then that's where the religions come from, Christianity and Islam, because they wouldn't go head up, and how both of those religions say that Judaism is the parent religion. And then we know that the Sephardists, are responsible for what they call Judaism in its original form. But you see how that they was there, and then, they would try to do what they did in the northern kingdom. And as you read down, so these nations feared the Elohim and served their graven images, both their and their children, as did their fathers, so do they unto this day. And that's the Babylonian Judaism that was created by them. I got videos explaining how that they left the promised land during the Babylonian wars and went to Cyprus, and then come back with a whole bunch of folks, and then try to claim Israelite heritage during that time. Man, our heritage been getting walked on and tossed up, and we Israelites that went into Africa, man, we just abandoned everything to them. And now that we waking up to what our ancestors did wrong, that we want to get it right, because we don't want to live in this oppression endlessly forever. We don't want to live in these horrible conditions that our ancestors put us in for breaking the covenant. So we showing how the Ashkenazi and the Sephardi's relations to the Israelite heritage, and how that they gonna have to come clean now. They gonna have to come clean. They been had a good long ride. They been had a good long ride. Man, 2,600 years. 2,600 years with the Israelite heritage, and been having the whole earth in their hands. Now they finna have to break us off a little piece of our heritage is all that we want. And that's why come I say the Israelite issue, can be settled. Can the Israelite issue be settled? Yes. Will the Israelite issue be settled? Yes. Truth on Israelite history is freedom for everybody. That just like the people ain't got to be obligated to those religions now. They don't have to be obligated to Christianity and Islam now when they see this truth. That's like I say, I'm the light. I'm the light. I'm the light to the Gentiles. I'm the light to the Gentiles. All right, so we see how the self-harvest got into our heritage. Let's go to 2 Chronicles 30. I'm always going through this. The Hebrews should be able to do this with ease by now, but because I do this so much. Look, 2 Chronicles 30. How them people come to the Passover dinner. But as you read 2 Chronicles 30, this is in 715 BC. This is King Hezekiah. And all the tribes that are not mentioned during King Hezekiah time gonna be mentioned during his great grandson King Josiah time. And then as you read on down, he'll tell you how he sent the letter throughout all Israel. Look, and Hezekiah sent to all Israel in Judah and wrote letters unto Ephraim and Manasseh, that they should come to the house of the Elohim to keep the Passover unto the Elohim Yah of Israel. You remember during this time, everybody on Egyptian religion until King Josiah cleaned it all the way up. But how King Hezekiah was trying to get us, back on the covenant. So we're going to come eat and have some fun. And that's what we did. Look, so the post went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Israel, and according to the commandment of the king, saying, Ye children of Israel, turn again unto the Elohim Yah of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, and he will return to the remain of you that are escaped out of the hands of the kings of Assyria. Look, that S, kings of Assyria. And I already showed you that the Syrians needed 3 tribes because Ashkenaz and them double crossed them, and then how that they was fighting for their life, and then how that they come and got the 3 tribes to help them fight Ashkenazi, and then that will make Ashkenazi come to our land with a heavy hand. But because we was with the Assyrians, I already show how we did trade with them, and I show in the video, other videos, how Prophet Isaiah even said that we'll be on par with the Egyptians and the Assyrians. That's in their last days when they was fighting against Ashkenazi, who was taking over the whole Mesopotamian area in the Egyptians' trade routes, taking all that over. All right. This the Assyrians needing us for help. The sons of Reuben, the Gadites, the half tribe of Manasseh, valiant men, able to bear a buckler with sword, and to shoot with bow, skillful in war, were 440,703 that went out to war. And those Israelite fighters might have been stationed throughout the other tribes, kicking it. And then that's who the Syrians come got them. And the Elohim of Israel stirred up the spirit of Paul, king of Assyria, the spirit of Tiglath, the king of Assyria, and he carried them away. Even the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh, and brought them unto Hala and Harbor and Haran unto the river goes on to this day. So they went to actually go fight Ashkenaz that was destroying Assyria. I can show that we had a close relationship with the Syrians. I just read how, that we took oil from Egypt to Assyria, but this is Prophet Isaiah saying, our connection with the Assyrians. Like I say, history ain't been truthful about the Israelites' relations to any nations because of the people we abandon our heritage to. They more or less align their history up with the enemies and then presented the enemies as the Israelites' friends and so forth is what they did. And then they kind of covered them. Look, but if you go to Isaiah 19 and you get to 23, in that day shall there be a highway out of Egypt to Assyria, and the Syrians shall come into Egypt, and the Egyptians into Assyria, and the Egyptians shall serve with the Assyrians. That's called the satire history of Egypt. And that's when Nietzsche, the satire kings was put on, the Mishwishma kings was put on by the Assyrians. Them would be the people that Ephraim and Manasseh would be kin to through Joseph being given Asenath, the priest of our own daughter, when we sojourned in Egypt. Look, in that day shall Israel be the third with Egypt and with the Assyrians, even a blessing in the midst of the land, whom the Elohim of hosts shall bless, saying, blessed be Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, mine inheritance. When that was wrote about almost close to the same time, you know what I'm saying, that we was taking oil, meaning to Egypt for the Assyrians. So like I say, that the history that you have today, meaning about Israelite history, is incorrect. And that's like I see that technology, man, the past is brung to the present with technology. And how Almighty Yah is responsible for that. Look, Ephraim feedeth on the wind, and followeth after the east wind, and he daily increaseth lies and desolation. And they do make a covenant with the Assyrians, and all is carried into Egypt. So, them enemies of ours saying that the Assyrians were mortal enemies to the Israelite nation has been false history. False history. And it how that you ain't gonna get no clear history unless you understand what the Israelite Brotherhood is bringing forth for the Israelite community, because all the other history about Israelite history, man, it is lacking. And then that's like I asked and tell Hebrews, when other Israelites get to discussing this Israelite history, because we're gonna have to start bringing them in line. The Israelite Brotherhood family. If you're listening to me, when people get to talking about some Israelite history, you're gonna have to ask them, where Ashkenazi and the Sephardi fit into this? And if they can't explain Israelite history like it's supposed to be, like it's supposed to go, then they need to be cut off. They need to be cut off and checked, possibly put them in their place. All the Israelites, man, this is a message to all the Israelites. If you're speaking Israelite history and you don't include Ashkenazi or the Sephardi history in it, then your history is wrong. It's wrong, and that's the simplest way to cut the nonsense, the foolishness off. All right, now we seen that Hezekiah, doing the Passover, had a Passover done at 715 BC, and then as you read, you see all these tribes still home, you know what I'm saying, and he even sent the letter to Beersheba to Dan, which is the whole inheritance, you know what I'm saying, for them to come to the Passover dinner. This is 2 Chronicles 30. And then as you read down, nevertheless, Asher, Zebulun, you know what I'm saying, Manasseh, Ephraim, all them still there. And then how that they still home. And then as you keep reading, he's still telling you about Israelites. And then as you get down to 25, is most important, because the people that was placed in 722 BC, the strangers, because ain't no other strangers been placed in our land. We've been in control of the land since exiting Egypt, and we'll know who some strangers are, who being put there. And then we know that the Amorite tribes that was there that we didn't destroy were not strangers, and that these had to be some new peoples. So this is in 715 BC under King Hezekiah. This is 7 years after the Sephardim was placed by the king of Assyria. All right, and this is 2 Chronicles chapter 30, verse 25. And all the congregation of Judah with the priests and the Levites, and all the congregation that come out of Israel, and the strangers that come out of the land of Israel that dwell in Judah, rejoice. So, they was rejoicing. The Sephardims at the Passover dinner. And that's one of the reasons why they like us to perform in entertainment and stuff, because when they mostly came and kicked it with us, and we was receptive to them with a blind man, is when we making music or dancing and partying. They always come around then and stuff. And then you can see that tradition, how they associate with us within them, with the industries that's been created off the Israelites. The blues, the rock and roll, the R&B, and the jazz, you name it, we created, they profit off of it. And that's because we was making music during the Passover time when them folks come around and man, they know what we can do, and they been having us in that mode for the longest. Long as we singing and making some music, you're blindsided. All right, so we see how the Sephardists was placed in our land, and then how that they would be there and wouldn't go nowhere. They wouldn't go nowhere. And then how during the Babylonian wars, you know, they would, be there. And then how that they had men appropriated our culture too, by coming to the Passover dinner and being as us. And it's like even in the BC days, man, them folks was being like us and stuff. You know what I'm saying? And that piece of paper is about how the Israelites be so confused about fringes, how they think because the natives in the Americas had some fringes that they was Israelites. And then I showed that buckskins are often trimmed with a fringe, originally a functional detail to allow the garment to shed rain and to dry faster when wet, because the fringe acted as a series of wickets to disperse the water or quails. Buckskin derived from deerskin clothing worn by Native Americans. That's why the Native Americans had some fringes on, man, because they was getting the water off their clothes. It wasn't because they had any Hebrew traits or anything associated with Israelite customs. And I got in plenty of videos explaining how it wasn't no Israelites in the Americas, man, before the transatlantic slave trade, and how the folks been running a con game even with that, saying the Israelites was in the Americas, man, before the transatlantic slave trade, and how we know that that's impossible because of the stuff that we was exposed to in the promised land. A lot of stuff that we was exposed to in the promised land that we wouldn't just abandon, you know what I'm saying, because we went to the Americas. Like I showing videos how we had glass windows and carts, axles and wheels, and man, domesticated animals and all kind of stuff. Alright, Hebrews, I just had to do this video because I just run across that professor, showing how Ashkenazi arrows was found all over the promised land, dating from the Babylonian wars, and how that we gonna need some type of settlement. We're gonna need some type of settlement because as this information getting out, it ain't looking good for them. So they gonna have to bring some type of settlement meant to make everything alright. And everything can be alright if they come through the Israelite Brotherhood with the settlement. Got to come through the Israelite Brotherhood, because if you Israelites let any other group try to be the spokesperson for us, when it come time for us to negotiate, how that you gonna get show-handed, and it ain't gonna be right. And you know how they constantly play tricks on us, always playing tricks on us. Well, with the Israelite Brotherhood, they ain't gonna be able to play no tricks, because we know what's going on, and we know what happened to us, and we know what's needed. Shalom, Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood that, we're going to have to bring some type of settlement. Can the Israelite issue be settled? Yes. Will it be settled? Yes. It's going to be settled. Almighty, y'all going to settle this Israelite issue. And as soon as the H crew go up, we're going to get to working full fast at it too. Shalom. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood.